So today I'm out here teaching a Tomahawk throwing course. So I figured I'd go ahead and share the information with y'all. So whenever the Tomahawks is we've heard of that throwing, and also like axe throwing or hatchet throwing. There's lots of different terms on that. One of the ways I prefer to teach this, and for people to get wanting to get into this, is more of a sport kind of thing. I prefer the tomahawks, mainly because to me they're easier. If you have something more like a hatchet here, it has a lot more weight. You can see in the back there how it's kind of thicker compared to this. This is more wrapped around, and then you can even look in the comparison of here. There's just more metal in this kind of thing. Now, don't get me wrong. This can be thrown, all right. And a lot of times you see bars, they have axe throwing contests and things, and they're kind of they have a lot of weight. But the good thing about this is it's actually easier to stick. If you notice the extra kind of flange here going on, and if memory serves me right, this is more of a Viking style, I believe, because it has more of a tip compared to this is straight across. When it comes to the sticking into a target, the tip actually helps, is what you want to go for. You're not wanting to hit a target straight on like this. You can make it stick like that, but it's going to be a lot harder to stick in a target whenever you're doing that. So the goal is kind of more of an angle like this when it hits. So if I have this just doesn't have near as much bite right there as this is going to have right here when it goes into the target. So not necessarily cheating, but it makes it easier to stick it, especially whenever you're just getting started. It's really disheartening whenever a lot of times they don't stick. All right, so that's why it's kind of good to have the this kind of more of a type with the bigger flange on it. These are made by, this particular one's made by Cold Steel. I've done these for decades. This is a handmade one here. Now there is another one here that this particular facility has, which is kind of unique. This is called an East Wing. So you can kind of see that there. Now, one of the good things I think about this one is that it doesn't have wood handles. I think this facility has got tired of replacing the wood handles. And you can see I got a lot of tape on here to cover up splinters and things. Because a lot of times you get kind of overly excited and you keep on throwing more than one, and next thing you notice, you got one sticking into the handle of another one. And they get stuck in there together. Also, when you have the traditional wood one, they do slide down, and you can always see this little groove there. So you have to kind of hit it on a log or something to kind of get it knocked down. But the nice thing about this one, obviously, it's one piece of metal. It doesn't slide any, so that's kind of neat on that. This is something I've never had really much experience with, but I have seen some of these that were really small, like that length there. Yeah, and this is they're kind of silly, but this is actually a pretty good length here. It's about 12 inches or so. But another good thing I like about this, though, the wooden one compared to the metal, this is more of a utility, because I have gone out in the woods and just took a knife and a tomahawk along with a small pack and just built a shelter in the woods. I've done that numerous times over the years. And having something like this, it doesn't have a lot of weight. I can easily just kind of, I put a little safety thing on it, and stick it on the side of my pack, on a backpack. And I could take this off. It's made to kind of slide off the wood. And then I have a hand tool. So I can use that for digging or for whatever I want to. If I want to have a hand tool, you don't have that ability with something that's kind of more of an all-in-one or something like this, So it does kind of give you more purposes. And don't get me wrong, having an axe in a survival situation, that's definitely a good thing. Lots of frontiersmen, that was one of their biggest tools they had. They can make a shelter really quick with an axe. But as far as like kind of backpacking, and my friend doing the video, Jerry here, he's a minimalist. He shaves his toothbrush down to so it's only an inch long, I think, or something. So he saves a few ounces. but anyway, when it comes to weight, this is pretty awesome, I feel like. So as far as the technique, we'll go ahead and get into that now. So the thing with throwing tomahawks, this is kind of, a lot of this also applies for throwing knives also, is the fact that you want to be consistent in what you do. All right, you can create your own technique, and you don't have to do anything that I tell you to do, or whatever. You can flick more if you want to. You can throw it as hard as like a speeding bullet. But whatever you do, you have to be consistent. All right, because if you're not consistent, you'll have one time it'll stick straight in. Next time it does 3 flips before it goes in, and then you can't. You're not going to be consistently hitting the target or sticking in the target on that too. One of the things, there's lots of variables you can adjust when it doesn't hit. For instance, you can adjust how much you flick. If you flick your wrist more, it's going to rotate more. The same thing where if you throw it harder or softer, it's going to adjust how much it rotates when it's going to the target. But with the variable that I recommend you adjust is just your distance from the target. So if you do your same thing with your wrist, same thing with your arm, same thing with the strength, even then only adjust your distance, I feel like you're going to be more likely to be able to get into the target more consistently. All right, so the general concept here for the most part is going to be a full rotation. You know, like with a knife, you can kind of hold it here. Yeah, I don't know how you'd even try that with a tomahawk, but you can say you don't want to do that. So with a knife, you can do a half rotation throw where you hold the blade like a pinch grip and throw it. But with a tomahawk, you're always doing a full rotation. Now, if you're at a further distance, then you can do 2 rotations. All right, but for starting out, we're just going to be focusing on 1 rotation. So the goal here is once you let go of it, the blade is going to drop quickly. Takes a little bit longer to come back up, and when it hits the target, you're wanting to hit the target like this right here. All right, so as I mentioned, your goal was here is a kind of a nice little angle. If it hits like this, I mean, granted, if you were hunting, hey, that's still great, you know what I mean. But as far as the target goes, or for competition, you want more of an angle on that part. You're more likely to get a good stick on that part. Now whenever if your distance is just right and your strength is consistent, and also your technique is the same, you're going to be able to just adjust 1 variable, as I mentioned, your distance. And let me talk about that in more detail here. So let's say if this is being thrown and it drops down and it comes up, and let's say if it hits like this. All right, that the handle hits. All right, so what happened, it didn't have enough time to rotate whenever I threw it. So to fix that, instead of adjusting any other variables, I'm just going to adjust the distance. I would back up maybe about, back up about 1 foot. In that case, maybe 1.5 feet. When I throw it again, it drops down, it comes up, and then it sticks. All right, because I only adjusted 1 variable, and that was the distance, and it had more time to be able to rotate. All right, so that was the point of that. The opposite end of that, if I was too close, well, that's what it was. It was too close. The opposite side of that is if I was too far away, what would happen? It comes down here, it drops, it's a little slower on the recovery, and it rotates. And we're too far away, so I had more time to rotate, and it hit like this. Okay, so this means that I was too far away. So because I had too much time to rotate. So all we're going to be doing now is just moving closer, and then when I drop it, it comes up, and then the goal is to hit straight on here. Okay. Now sometimes you can get a stick like this to happen. That's one good thing about this. This sticks up higher than here, so it's kind of like cheating in a way. But the goal is right there. So you want to get that distance just right. All right. So as far as the technique goes, you don't want to hold it really close to the end, because you could just kind of lose it as you let go, and you don't want to be up here either. I recommend 2 to 3 fingers from the bottom here. That's more like 3, more like 4 by the hand grip. Everybody's kind of different. This is just my preference, somewhere in that area there. Okay, about 3 to 4 fingers. All right, and when you come back, you're going to follow through with it. You're not going to go to this kind of motion. And at the same time, a wrist, you don't want to rotate your wrist. You want to make sure your wrist is staying straight, because if you flick your wrist, it's going to rotate more. So on the wrist, you want to make sure your wrist stays straight, and you don't want to flick it. You can. Some people like throwing things and flicking. I personally don't like that. This is the way that I teach it. So if your wrist is straight, what happens is it's not going to rotate quite as fast. And when you come back here, you're going to follow through with it. And also without the tomahawk, I come here, I go through and follow through, and my wrist stays straight. And you might get a little rotation on the end when it gets down, but I'm not doing this kind of motion here. And it's just following all the way through with it. And once again, when you bring it back here, I kind of go through with the motion here. I bring it back. You don't have to go all the way back here. Just kind of back in an angle like that, and then I come up and I follow through with the wrist stay straight. Letting go. You don't want to let go when it's straight in front of you. A tomahawk is going to be a little bit more of a kind of going down. It does go out a little bit. I don't let go when it's right in line with the target, a little bit above it, because I know it's going to kind of go out and down a little bit as it travels. All right. So now we'll go ahead and do a few throws with it. There we go. All right, we'll come back again. See if I can get more in the middle this time, hopefully. There we go. That's a good, awesome, classic throw right there. All right, so for general safety of your equipment, once you stick it, I don't recommend you throw more behind it. You will end up hitting handles, and they were split and everything. All right, so also keep in mind, if you have other people around, keep in mind safety things. It is a good idea to wear safety glasses. Didn't put mine on, probably should have. Hindsight. I'm not recording this video all over again. All right, so and also when you're retrieving your tomahawk, make sure you're not kind of moving side to side. You want to come down with it. Kind of move it down and take it back out of the target. If it comes like here, you see it slid, hit it on a piece of log, and it'll knock it back up there. They do have little things that kind of lock it in. They work for the first dozen throws, and they just kind of strip out. So, all right, but this is it's a fun hobby. Yeah, you could in a survival situation, could you hunt with it? Yes, I guess so. But there's better things you could hunt with than a tomahawk. But as far as survival, I still think it's a great tool to use because of just the fact of the multiple purposes it has. You could throw it in a situation for defense or something, or use it for defending yourself. I wouldn't ever throw it unless I had something else, or unless I was running or something, because then if you're defending yourself, the person you just gave your person your weapon. So yeah, there's good and bad on that. That's a whole nother argument. But primarily it's just more for sport. It is pretty fun. Also, if you keep it sharp, if you start getting burrs, keep them sharp, more likely to stick in the target too, and that's going to be more efficient. All right, anyway, I hope you learned something. Thanks for visiting, and you have a good day. All right, now that was actually a good example of what not to do. I totally missed. Okay.